Welcome to Monterey Square. Monterey Square is named after one of the battles of the War of 1812, where many Savannahans died. I believe one of the battles was up in Canada. Monterey Square is famous because it holds the monument to Count Casimir Pulowski. Count Casimir Pulowski was the most famous American war hero in U.S. history, but a lot of people don't know that, and that is because he became a war hero back in the Revolutionary War. So Americans have a tendency to forget their heroes war after war. But if you Google Count Casimir Pulowski, you'll discover that indeed there are 9 states that have federal holidays on October 11th, the day that he was killed here in Savannah, in the Siege of Savannah of 1779 on October 9th. Now, Count Casimir Pulowski was 37 years old. He's a freedom fighter. Benjamin Franklin went over to bring him over from Paris to fight for George Washington, and he was the father of the American cavalry. And so on October 9th, 1779, Count Casimir Pulowski and the cavalry, they were stationed in Charleston, South Carolina, and they received orders to go help with the conflict, to help with the colonialists and the French against the British here in Savannah. It turned out to be the bloodiest battle in the Revolutionary War. There were over 1,000 lives lost between 1 and 4 hours. There were 600 Frenchmen killed and 400 colonialists killed in one area the size of this square. And so that square is off of MLK Boulevard over here, the battlefield, and you can indeed go visit it. So Pulowski, he came in at the end of the day after there was a massive carnage, and he tried to survey the situation. So he stood up in his horse, and when he stood up on his horse to survey the carnage, he received a grape shot in his loin. So it immediately knocked him off his horse, and he died 3 days later of gangrene. He was buried at sea. We know that he was buried at sea because there was a Frenchman who kept a diary of every Frenchman who was killed and reported that he was buried at sea. So if you take a look around also in the square, you'll see that there's a lot of wrought iron work here. The wrought iron rivals that of the French Quarter in New Orleans. My heritage goes back to Charleston, the French Huguenots that came over in 1730, and they were wrought iron craftsmen, and they did the wrought iron work in Charleston, Savannah, as well as in New Orleans. You'll also notice there's several famous landmarks here. Right behind me we have the Hugh Mercer House, which is famous for the New York Times bestseller, Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil. And then also behind me on the opposite side, we have the 3rd oldest Jewish synagogue in the United States.